Dual sovereignty versus double jeopardy. Could this apply to Gypsy Rose Blanchard? Dual sovereignty allows separate state and federal prosecutions for the same conduct without violating the double jeopardy clause of the U.S. Constitution. Here's how this principle applies and why it could theoretically be relevant to Gypsy Rose Blanchard's case. Double jeopardy versus dual sovereignty. The Double Jeopardy Clause, part of the Fifth Amendment, protects individuals from being tried twice for the same crime by the same sovereign. However, the doctrine of dual sovereignty permits different sovereigns, such as a state and the federal government, to prosecute a person for the same conduct because they are enforcing separate laws. Key points of dual sovereignty. 1. Distinct legal interests. State and federal governments have independent interests in enforcing their own laws. A crime may violate state law, e.g., murder under Missouri law, and federal law, e.g., conspiracy using interstate communications. Each sovereign can pursue justice for its own violations. 2. Supreme Court ruling in Gamble v. United States, 2019. The court reaffirmed that dual sovereignty allows successive prosecutions by state and federal authorities for the same act. This ruling upheld the idea that the federal government is not bound by a state's decision to prosecute or the outcome of that prosecution. How this applies to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Gypsy Rose was convicted in Missouri State Court for her role in the murder of her mother, D.D. Blanchard. While Missouri prosecuted her under state law, the federal government could theoretically prosecute her for violations of federal law stemming from the same events. Potential federal charges. Use of interstate communications. Gypsy and Nicholas Godejohn used text messages and online platforms to plan D.D.'s murder. If these communications crossed state lines, they could violate federal laws such as 18 U.S.C. Section 875, interstate communication of threats or plans for harm. 18 U.S.C. 1858, use of interstate commerce, including phones or the internet, in murder for hire or conspiracy cases. Financial fraud conspiracies. If Gypsy knowingly participated in or benefited from D.D.'s fraudulent claims about her health, e.g., defrauding Medicaid or Social Security, this could constitute conspiracy to commit financial fraud. D.D. Blanchard's financial exploitation through Medicaid, Social Security, and charitable donations could implicate Gypsy if federal authorities determined she knowingly participated or benefited. Although Missouri focused on the murder, federal prosecutors could separately address financial fraud. 18 U.S.C. 1512, tampering with a witness, victim, or informant. This law criminalizes actions taken to hinder, delay, or prevent communication with law enforcement about a federal crime. Elements of the crime. Actions taken to tamper with evidence or witnesses. Federal jurisdiction applies if the underlying crime is federal. Application to Gypsy. If Gypsy attempted to destroy evidence or prevent someone from reporting their plans to law enforcement using interstate communication, this could trigger this statute. 18 U.S.C. 1958, murder for hire and interstate commerce. This statute prohibits using interstate commerce facilities, such as phones, the internet, or mail, to plan or carry out murder for hire or other violent crimes. Elements of the crime. A facility of interstate commerce, e.g., phones, internet, was used. The purpose was to facilitate the commission of murder or another violent crime. Application to Gypsy. Even if no money exchanged hands, the use of text messaging or online communication to plan D.D.'s murder could fall under this statute, as federal courts have broadly interpreted facilities of interstate commerce. Potential federal penalties. Convictions under federal conspiracy laws can lead to severe penalties, 18 U.S.C. 371, up to 5 years in prison and/or fines, unless tied to another offense like murder. 18 U.S.C. 1958, murder for hire. Penalty includes life imprisonment or death if the underlying crime is murder. 18 U.S.C. 875, up to 20 years in prison for threatening or planning murder across state lines. 18 U.S.C. 373, up to 20 years for solicitation to commit a violent crime. If federal prosecutors determine that Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Nicholas Godejohn's actions violated federal conspiracy statutes, particularly through the use of interstate communications or financial fraud, they could theoretically prosecute her even after her state conviction. This prosecution would be permissible under the dual sovereignty doctrine, bypassing double jeopardy protections. To prompt federal courts to re-examine Gypsy Rose Blanchard's case under the dual sovereignty doctrine, specific steps would need to occur. Here's how that process might unfold. 1. Presenting new evidence to federal authorities. Federal prosecutors could consider reopening the case if significant evidence emerges showing that federal laws were violated. This could include interstate communication proof, evidence that Gypsy and Nicholas Godejohn used tools like text messages, social media, or emails to plan the murder, especially if these communications crossed state lines. Detailed financial fraud linkage, proof that the murder was linked to a broader scheme involving the misuse of federal benefits programs like Social Security or Medicaid, which D.D. Blanchard exploited by claiming Gypsy was disabled. Sources of new evidence might include digital forensic analysis. Advanced technology could analyze devices more thoroughly than at the time of the original investigation. Witness testimony or whistleblowers. Individuals close to the case or new witnesses might come forward with pertinent information. 2. Filing a petition with the Department of Justice, DOJ. Concerned parties, such as legal advocates, victims' rights groups, or private citizens, could petition the DOJ to investigate whether federal crimes were involved. This could happen if a formal complaint outlines evidence of federal law violations. Advocacy groups pressure federal prosecutors to act, citing public interest or gaps in justice. 3. Public and media pressure. Media campaigns can play a significant role in highlighting potential federal law violations in high-profile cases. Examples include documentaries or investigative journalism pieces exposing potential unprosecuted crimes. Advocacy campaigns emphasizing the use of interstate communication and the broader implications of the crime. Public attention can push the DOJ to reevaluate whether federal charges should be filed. 4. Coordination with federal prosecutors, local or state law enforcement agencies could share evidence with federal prosecutors. In Gypsy's case, this would involve reevaluating police reports, interrogation transcripts, and digital records, federal authorities conducting their own investigation based on new evidence. There is more than enough evidence that Gypsy Rose Blanchard planned her mother's murder over the internet. She spoke with Nicholas Godejohn about their plans many times. She also looked up ways to kill someone on her computer. There is also more than enough evidence that she tampered with evidence, crossed state lines, and planned to hire Nicholas Godejohn to do the act. Also, Gypsy admitted in court to knowing about the medical fraud that her mother was doing and having her be a part of. Gypsy, your days of freedom will soon be over. Justice for Dee, justice for Nick. Please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you all.